Magnus the Red stormed from the amphitheatre chamber at Nikaea as soon as the Emperor had proclaimed his final judgment. While it was customary to allow the Emperor to leave a room before anybody else, nobody was surprised or even attempted to stop Magnus as he hurriedly left the chamber. Magnus ignored the sympathetic looks from Fulgrim and Sanguinius as he made his way towards the main hangar bay. Magnus had only made it a few hundred yards before two figures stepped out from a side chamber and blocked Magnus's path further. The first figure was large, broad and tall, garbed in glittering ornate golden armour. Magnus immediately recognized the figure as Constantine Baldor, Captain General of the Legio Custodes. The figure next to him, while small and frail in stature, radiated power and authority: Malcador the Sigillite. The two of them stood blocking Magnus's path further, and Magnus reluctantly addressed them both. Captain General, Lord Regent, we were all in the room, and I have nothing further to say, nor am I in a mood to be further scolded. Malcador smiled and spoke. No, Magnus, I am not here to lecture you or to scold you. I was sent here to look for you by your father. He wishes to speak with you in private before you leave. Magnus did not wish to discuss the matter any further with anybody, but Magnus could not refuse an order from his father, so he nodded and addressed Malcador again. Very well, Malcador, lead the way. Malcador nodded, and both he and Baldor escorted Magnus through the tunnels of the volcano. The silence between the three as they walked was immense, but Magnus was in no mood to discuss what had happened, nor was he foolish enough to engage in debate with Malcador in a conversation that would only end up in a roundabout scolding or lesson from the Lord Regent, so they all walked together in stoic silence. After a few more minutes of walking, they reached a closed-ended corridor with a large set of double doors at its end. Flanking either side of the corridor were a dozen members of the Sisters of Silence arranged in formation. At their head, the easily identifiable figure of Jenitor Kroll, the Soulless Queen. Magnus scoffed at their presence. While not enough to strip him of his powers, Jenitor's presence was enough to even cause Magnus some discomfort. Your father is waiting within, Magnus. We shall leave you two alone for this meeting. Magnus said nothing as he walked past the Silent Sisters and entered the chamber at the end of the corridor. As he entered within, he noticed the chamber was bare rockcrete, interlaced with noise bafflers and dampeners. While there were no decorations in the room and it was constructed to be entirely functional, Magnus still recognized the work of his brother Perturablo, and standing in the center of the chamber, still armored in his glittering golden battleplate, was his father, the Emperor of Mankind. Magnus did not have time to speak before the Emperor noticed him and smiled. The Emperor spoke in a voice soft and sweet. I noticed how you changed the story of the three in the cave. Fascinating how you changed the original meaning interpretation of that text. Magnus did not have a chance to speak as his father kept talking. The original name of that story, in Old Terran, is Plato's Cave, and it is one of my favorite analogies of ignorance versus wisdom. The Emperor kept his silence and gestured for Magnus to speak. I felt it was appropriate in the situation of discussing the ignorance of people in regards to the matters of the great ocean. However, he chuckled, I felt the original interpretation was counterproductive to any progress I wish to make in this regard. It would be that, though I feel the original interpretation is just as valid today as it was in the days of Old Terra, as much as we both wish it was not. So why validate it, Father, with your support? Why let ignorance dictate our future? It is not ignorance, my son, but necessity that guided my decision. Was it necessary to listen to those too loud and too narrow-minded to listen to reason, understand, or even compromise? The Emperor smiled at his son's words and began speaking again, his voice calm and measured. I have not asked you here to discuss or debate the decree I have made. Rather, I wish to speak to you as to the reasons behind why I made it. To appease the ignorant council of Terra and my superstitious brothers? No, my son, there is a deeper reason behind my decision. But be warned, what we discuss here cannot leave this room. That is why we meet in this way, in this fashion. You must swear to me that you will not discuss this matter with anyone, not your brothers or your sons. You may not voice your thoughts without or within from what I have to say from this moment forward. Do you swear this, my son? Magnus paused and absorbed his father's words. Yes, father, I do swear. Very well, my son. So you are aware that the warp is growing in turmoil the further from Terra the crusade goes? Yes, I have noticed it, father, but that is just the natural ebb and flow of the great ocean. No, my son, the denizens of the warp grow wrathful, and they have set their sights on the material universe. The increases in warp activity are more and more frequent as they grow more and more wrathful. The creatures of the warp are just mindless warp predators, father. They have no power over our realm. Besides, you and I have faced them before and bested them every time. It is not as it seems, my son. The creatures of the warp are not mindless. They are malevolent and wrathful, and have set their sights on our galaxy. If what you say is true, father, how can they achieve this? Only those with the gift are vulnerable to such attacks. Not so, my son. All sentient life can be consumed and become subservient to the predators of the warp. We have seen this before in countless xeno races and misguided human colonies. So why not warn us all, father? If they are such a great threat, why banish all psychics if everyone is at risk like this? Words and deeds have power, my son. You know this as well as I. The predators of the warp gain more power the more people who know of them, whether they choose to follow them or not. The Imperial Truth, dawned Magnus. Yes, my son. The Imperial Truth is our greatest counter to their threat, but continued use of the warp, through psychers or warp travel, is still as much a threat to my truth as anything else. Magnus was still digesting all of this as his father was speaking, but then a thought suddenly appeared in Magnus's mind. You mentioned warp travel, father. Why do we use it if it is so potentially dangerous for mankind? Necessity, my son, but through my great work on Terra, I will be able to change all of that. Is that why you chose to retire to Terra, father? To cease our reliance on the whims of the great ocean? Yes, my son. My great work is to safeguard humanity against the dangers of the warp. So this is why you have passed your decree? Yes, my son. I need to be able to safeguard my great work against the growing powers in the warp, and the continued use of such powers in the material realm endangers my goal. Including mine? The Emperor gave his son a sad smile. Yes, my son, especially yours. You explore the depths of the warp far deeper than any other but myself. But the deeper you explore, the more creatures in its depth that you disturb. Magnus became annoyed at his father's judgment. If my exploring in the great ocean was so dangerous, why did you teach me to do it? Why did you allow me to come with you in our discoveries of the ocean, if, as you say, my actions were so reckless when I chose to do them alone? What would have been more dangerous? Teaching you how to explore and accompanying you on your quests, allowing you to understand the limitations through your own discovery, or letting you swim alone with no teaching or guidance but your own? Besides that, my son, I rather enjoyed our trips into the Empyrean together. It is rare for me to make such a journey accompanied for a change. Magnus smiled half-heartedly. So is that it, father? Forbidden from using our gifts ever again until your great work is completed? A small sacrifice, in favour of what we have to gain if I succeed. A galaxy free from the corruption of the warp, and a humanity united in a peaceful, prosperous galaxy. So yes, my son, I ask that you need to relegate your gifts to one side, for now. For now? Yes, my son. You see, you are vital for my plans to succeed. I cannot tell you exactly how until the time is right, but your skills and your gifts are vital to the success of my goals, and I will need you when the time is right. And my legion? The Emperor looked neutral at his next choice of words. Perhaps, but for now they must follow my decree, as do you. Magnus frowned at his father's words, but he was still troubled. Father, I have something I wish to tell you. During the council, while Mortarion was speaking, I received a vision. A vision of what, my son? Thinking back to what you have just been saying, Father, I think I was targeted by a warp predator. The Emperor became instantly concerned. What did it say, my son? It told me that Horus would betray you, Father, on the moon of Devon, that his betrayal was inevitable. The Emperor suppressed his growing concern and addressed his son once again. And that is why, my son, you need to cease your delving into the warp. The closer we gain to victory over them, the more desperate the predators of the warp become. So desperate, it seems, that they feed you false visions to try and encourage you to delve deeper into their depths. So the vision is just a falsehood, Father? A lie to encourage me to disturb more warp predators as I delve deeper into the great ocean to try and understand the truth of what I have seen? Now you understand, my son. That is the truth of what I speak, and that is why you must refrain further from your activities, until I call for you. Magnus the Red was still unsure about all he had heard, and his reasons behind why his father had acted the way he did. However, the fact his father had chosen to reveal to him his reasons had eased a little off Magnus's mind. Now, my son, I know what I have said here is a lot for you to take in, but you must heed my decree. Terrible things for you and the galaxy await if we fail. Yes, Father. Thank you, my son. I recommend you return home to Prospero and muster your legion. Await my call, for I will call you when I need you. I will, Father. Thank you, my son. Magnus the Red left the chamber, leaving the Emperor alone with his thoughts. The Emperor stood in silence for a few minutes, contemplating all that he had heard. The visions that were given to Magnus concerned the Emperor, and he resolved to dispatch some custodes to keep a closer eye on the War Master. The fact that the Emperor's own foresight had not showed him of this eventuality concerned him more. The Emperor briefly wondered if it would have been wiser to have the Crimson King and his legion accompany him to Terra, so that he may keep a close eye over them. But his project would be put at much greater risk if Magnus chose to use his powers on Terra. No, keeping Magnus under watch on Prospero until needed was the wisest call. The Emperor cooled his concerns. There was still much to be done, and if the beings of the warp were growing more desperate, then he only had a limited amount of time to get his project together before their desperation turned to madness. The Emperor left the chamber and began walking to where Malcador and Baldor awaited him.